Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. The land of 10,000 lakes and now one big lawsuit. Minnesota leaders say they are suing the Department of Homeland Security. We are live on the ground in moments in Minneapolis with the very latest. Plus, fed up. The Department of Justice launches a criminal investigation against the country's top money man. Tonight, how the White House is responding. Also happening at this hour, this is a major decision for the commander-in-chief. Will he once again strike Iran, this time as massive protests push back against the regime?
Airstrikes would be one of the many, many options that are on the table for the commander-in-chief. Diplomacy is always the first option for the president.
And later this hour, why is the Secretary of War appearing alongside Elon Musk at SpaceX? We will take you there live when that happens. But first tonight, here from the Hill, more fallout in Minnesota. Democratic leaders in Minneapolis announcing they have filed a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. It comes after last week's shooting, and as the administration surges more immigration officers into Minneapolis.
We aren't backing down. We don't retreat in Minneapolis. We don't back down in Minnesota. We stand up against bullies, and right now, what we are asking for is an intervention from the court to push back on this unconstitutional conduct, pure and simple.
But tonight, the Department of Homeland Security responding, saying they are not putting politics over public safety. Our Brooke Schaefer starts us off in Minneapolis on the streets there once again with the very latest. Hello, Brooke.
Hey, Blake, local and state officials today really echoing the message of these protesters here. They have been outside this federal building in Minneapolis for days on end. Their message, they want ICE to get out of Minneapolis and Minnesota. And today we learned the state and the Twin Cities now suing the Trump administration to end the federal immigration enforcement happening right now across the state. At that press conference today, Minneapolis's mayor also pointed to some of the videos that we saw from this weekend of immigration enforcement happening all over the city, arrests taking place. Here's the mayor just earlier today.
What we are seeing right now is not normal immigration enforcement. We are not asking ICE not to do ICE things. We are asking this federal government to stop the unconstitutional conduct that is invading our streets each and every day.
Now, the Trump administration has said that they are here because of, and in part because of, allegations of rampant fraud across the state of Minnesota. Local and state leaders today really countering that argument, claiming that this isn't about fraud. Instead, this is political. And you heard DHS's response there saying this is not about politics, but about policy. Blake?
Brooke Schaefer, live for us in Minneapolis. Brooke, thank you. Also this evening, a first of its kind. A criminal investigation into the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell. It stems from billions spent on upgrades to the Fed's downtown D.C. headquarters and testimony about it from the Fed chair. President Trump saying he knew nothing about the new subpoenas. Powell says it's all political, and even some Republicans tonight are steering clear.
We're gonna let the investigation play out. There's concern about cost overruns and whatever the allegations are. I don't know. I wasn't involved in that. It's something that you have to look into, and so we'll have to reserve judgment.
It comes as the president faces economic questions elsewhere. He's about to hit the road, headed to Michigan to sell his policies to the American public, and there is a potential new one on the horizon involving how much you might be paying to your credit card company. Our Kelly Meyer at the White House with their reaction tonight. But first, up to Capitol Hill, our Joe Khalil with the very latest there. Joe?
Yeah, Blake, you played what Speaker Johnson said. Leader Thune here on the Senate side, very similar response. Let the process play out. We don't have all the facts yet. I can tell you that there are certain allies of President Trump, very strong allies here on Capitol Hill, that have defended the probe into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. I can tell you there are a lot more Republicans, though, and I've had these conversations on background, texting today, that necessarily they don't want to put their names on these quotes, but that there are a good number of them that are simply uncomfortable with this idea that the Fed chair is now under federal investigation. It was the Fed chair himself that actually broke this news last night when he put out that really remarkable video calling on, basically saying that these charges are nothing but an intimidation tactic to try to get the Fed to bend to the will of the White House. We can't leave you, Blake, without talking about Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican senator who is a critical vote on the Senate Banking Committee. Moving forward, whoever replaces Powell, the new nominee, is going to have to go through that committee and will need Tillis's vote. He says he's not going to provide it so long as this investigation continues. And he's not the only one. So there are some that are certainly pretty frustrated, as are virtually every Democrat, with this investigation playing out today.
Our Joe Kay, live up in the Capitol hallways. Joe, thank you. Over to the White House now. Our Kelly Meyer there tonight as the president is about to hit the road and potentially, or at least endorsing, Kelly, a new policy position. Hello.
Hey there, Blake. Yeah, President Trump set to head to Michigan tomorrow to continue with his affordability tour. He'll speak at the Detroit Economic Club and tour a factory in Dearborn that produces F-150s. So ramping up manufacturing and hiring more American workers, they say. Today, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt touting economic wins for the White House. Mortgage rates fell below 6% for the first time in years. Gas prices, the national average, $2.79 a gallon for the first time in nearly 5 years. And on January 20th, the one-year anniversary of his inauguration, President Trump wants to credit card companies to cap their interest rates at 10% for 1 year. So in a Truth Social post late Friday, he wrote, quote, "Please be informed that we will no longer let the American public be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30%. And in an unexpected call, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren spoke with the president on the phone today, and moments ago, she addressed it. Take a listen.
For years now, I've said we should have a cap on credit card interest rates. Donald Trump said over a year ago that he was in favor of that, but he hasn't lifted a finger to make it happen. Now might be the time to get that done.
So she did say that she spoke about legislation to cap credit card rates with the president today, though critics say it could limit consumers' access to credit. Blake?
Kelly Meyer, live at 1600 for us tonight. Kelly, thank you. With us now, Republican Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas, sits on both the Finance and Budget Committees, revealed that he's spoken to the president on this very issue, plans to issue legislation here soon, I suspect. The senator with us tonight here on the Hill. Once again, Senator Marshall, thanks for being with us. I want to lay out some of the facts as we know it. The average credit card interest rate, it's up at 21% right now, and that is an escalation from where it was just, say, a decade ago. And when we look at credit card debt across this country, it is spiking well north of $1 trillion at about $1.2 trillion. What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, look, we want every American family to be able to live their American dream. And unfortunately, they're spending $300 a month on interest on credit cards and swipe fees as well. That's come about because there's 2 credit card companies, a handful of banks that control 80% of the market. So we want to put this cap at 10% on the interest rates. As you point out, Americans paying 20 to 30% on interest rates right now. I think this is wildly popular, and this is something that we're doing to impact the cost of living.
Look, I obviously showed the numbers there, and you will get no pushback on when it comes to taking on the credit card companies and taking on the banks in America. You laugh, it's funny because it's true. You know that's the case, right? No. But I just heard a Republican tell me that they are pushing for a price cap. Here's what you said, Senator, about Kamala Harris on debate night in October. You said Kamala Harris wants price controls and likes government handouts. Price controls and government handouts drive up costs across the rest of the economy. Why now are you for price controls?
Well, I think desperate times call for desperate measures. I wouldn't call this price controls. We're capping interest rates. Look, credit card companies are making 45 to 55% net profit margins. Banks making 30% net profit margin. Look, these have become oligopolies. So if there's truly a free market system, I'd be all for doing nothing. But again, I mentioned 2 credit card companies controlling 80% of the market. Something has to be done.
I just heard you say desperate times call for desperate measures. And there's a Republican in the White House. The Republicans run Capitol Hill right now as well. I know you're talking specifically about this issue, but does the president need to do more about the economy?
Well, look, maybe I over-exaggerated with an old phrase. I wouldn't take it literally. What I hear people saying is because of 4 years of Joe Biden inflation, we've seen the cost of housing, the cost of health insurance, property insurance go 50%. Other issues got up some 25%. So we do want to address this. Good news, the border's secure, gas prices are coming down, the stock market's soaring, interest rates are going down as well. But there is a group of people who are struggling to reach their American dream. And we want to make sure that can happen. Right now, these families carrying $7,000 a month of credit card debt, and they're getting charged, as you pointed out, 20 to 30% interest. So we want to bring that cost down for American families.
You just talked about interest rates, Senator, and there is a new conversation around Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, a new criminal investigation into him. Do you believe that Jay Powell is a criminal?
I think that's what the AG needs to find out. What I do believe is that people are overreacting to the situation right now, that this judicial investigation is about him misleading Congress, perhaps. Did he lie to Congress? I don't know. It was a $1.8 billion project to redo these buildings. I've heard now it's up to $3 to $4 billion. Right now, what we want from the White House and in Congress is full transparency. We want to hold people accountable, and we want to address fraud, waste, and abuse. So I think that's what this investigation is about.
Tom Tillis, your colleague, Republican North Carolina, says, quote, "It is now the independence and credibility of the DOJ that are in question." You just said the Attorney General should look and find out. Should the DOJ continue to go forward with this, or is Tom Tillis right that that now the DOJ's credibility is in question?
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that, number one, President Trump did not know about this investigation, and he's not weighed in on it yet either. So I want to wait to see what President Trump has to say about this as well. What we do know is that Jerome Powell has made it political. He made it political in Trump 45 when he raised interest rates too soon. During the Biden era, he was too slow once again on raising interest rates. When we saw inflation was occurring, he was calling it temporary, as you know, and then a month before the presidential election, he drops interest rates 0.5%, and now he appears to be too slow in dropping interest rates again. So it does feel somewhat political. May 15th can't come soon enough when we get to turn that position over.
May 15th, as the senator says, is when Jay Powell's tenure ends as the Fed chair. President Trump expected to announce his replacement soon. Roger Marshall, Republican from Kansas, going over a lot with us tonight here on the Hill. Nice to see you. We'll talk again soon. Of course. All right, still to come right now, get out of Iran. That is the new warning from the State Department this evening as President Trump weighs potential military action there. The president's former national security advisor, John Bolton, joins us next, plus an AI diagnosis. ChatGPT adds a new health feature. But could uploading your medical records lead to a misdiagnosis? Jillian Michaels is with us. Hello, Jillian. Stand on by. Jillian's with us later in the show. Plus, coming up in minutes, Elon Musk once again teaming up with the Trump administration as the SpaceX founder joins the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. That expected to happen in about 15 minutes' time, live in Texas. We're following it all. I'm Blake Burman. See you back on the other side. 4 minutes out. President Trump continuing to put pressure on Iran this evening. The president on social media just moments ago writing, quote, "Any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business being conducted with the United States of America." It comes as the president weighs potential options going forward. The White House saying earlier today that military action against Iran was indeed on the table. Iran's foreign minister saying the country is prepared for war, but ready to negotiate.
I think one thing President Trump is very good at is always keeping all of his options on the table, and airstrikes would be one of the many, many options that are on the table for the commander-in-chief.
Tens of thousands of Iranians once again packing streets there to protest against the government. Demonstrators clashing with security forces. Some estimates suggest nearly 600 people have been killed in the protests, while thousands more have been arrested. And happening just within the past hour or so here, the State Department now telling American citizens in Iran to leave that country and to do so now. Joining us, John Bolton, former National Security Advisor in the first administration, former ambassador as well. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for being with us tonight. Let me start with that. What does it suggest to you? And thanks for being back with us. What does it suggest to you that the State Department right now is telling Americans inside Iran to evacuate?
Well, it's very dangerous inside Iran. I mean, the number of deaths over the weekend from the regime's repression, I'm hearing could be in the thousands as reports come in from around the country. So these demonstrations and the repression have been going on for 2 weeks. It might have been better to issue it earlier, but certainly better late than never. Whether it signals any administration decision, who knows, could be. And in any event, it's good advice. When
the White House, you heard Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary there today, responding, and you know this, but the Trump White House, a default answer is all options are on the table, but they didn't back down today, Ambassador Bolton, from the possibility of airstrikes. How likely do you think that is for whatever reason from the United States at some point here in the coming hours or days?
Well, I certainly think it would be appropriate, but I think what's more important than what are we going to do tomorrow, what's the next option on the table, is what's the plan? What's the objective? I think the objective should be to help the opposition overthrow the regime of the Ayatollahs and the Revolutionary Guard, and a kind of one-and-done strike isn't necessarily going to do that. This is an opportunity now, after over 45 years of this regime in power. I don't think it's ever been weaker or less popular. I think the possibility of regime change is there, and I think the administration ought to be thinking in those terms, not simply an airstrike to show we can do it. There are lots of targets, though, that's for sure.
Speaking of potential targets, here was Senator Lindsey Graham, and then let's pick it up on the other side.
Mr. President needs to embolden the protesters and scare the hell out of the regime. If I were you, Mr. President, I would kill the leadership that are killing the people. You've got to end this.
What is your reaction there to the senator, and do you believe that the Ayatollah's days are numbered?
Well, I wouldn't go after the Ayatollah. I would steer clear, this time at least, of the religious issue. I would target the Revolutionary Guard headquarters. Obviously, the first thing we'll do is take out whatever remaining air defenses or whatever new air defenses the Iranians have been able to put up. But I would target Revolutionary Guard headquarters, Revolutionary Guards bases, locations of the Basiji militia, who are among the worst of the repressors inside. I think it's always a good idea to go after the Iranian nuclear weapons program, the Iranian ballistic missile program, and I think given the particular vulnerability we have in the Gulf, putting Iran's Navy at the bottom of the Gulf would be a good idea, too. That's just to get started.
The commander-in-chief revealed aboard Air Force One last night that Iran called, he says, to negotiate. And the White House said today basically what Iran is saying publicly doesn't necessarily match what they're saying privately. On this concept of negotiation, do you think that President Trump should be negotiating with the Iranians right now?
I think it's a waste of oxygen. These people may well be intimidated. I think that's great. Let's give them reason to be intimidated. Let's see if we can help the opposition pick the regime apart at the top. One way to bring it down is to fracture the top leadership, to have some people defect to the opposition. I think that's what we ought to be working on. I think the Iranians would use negotiations only to buy time and to try and ward off a real U.S. move here.
Ambassador John Bolton with us live here on the Hill as he watches, we all watch, many across the world watching Iran this evening and what could potentially come there. Ambassador, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course, still to come, Elon Musk back in the spotlight. Back in the spotlight with the Trump administration. Any moment now, we are expecting Musk will join the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, as the administration pushes for new innovation in warfare. This event taking place at SpaceX. A live look there once those two are on stage. We'll take you there live. And when it comes to your health, do you trust AI? Health and wellness expert Jillian Michaels joins us next to discuss new AI-powered health tools, what ChatGPT and what Anthropic are saying now. I can't wait to hear what Jillian has to say about this and whether we all should dive in or not. Other side of the break. All right, just about 6:30 here on the East Coast, 5:30 out in Texas tonight. Some stories coming into our newsroom at this hour. We're looking at the screen there, Brownsville, Texas. Any moment now, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, will join Elon Musk on stage at SpaceX's headquarters in South Texas. This is the third major speech for Hegseth's tenure and one of the first times that we have seen Musk with a top administration official since his, of course, public breakup with the president last year. Now, President Trump says he will work with Musk to get Starlink's internet to Iran amid the blackout there imposed by the regime to try to counter protests. Hegseth also visiting Lockheed Martin's F-35 plant in Fort Worth today as part of a tour of major U.S. defense companies. We're monitoring that event. Elon Musk, Pete Hegseth, if and when they get to the microphones, we'll listen on in for some of it. From our affiliate, KOIN, Portland, Oregon. The Department of Justice announcing charges against an illegal immigrant who they say tried to ram Border Patrol agents with his vehicle. The DOJ says he's a known member of the Tren de Aragua gang. The Attorney General Pam Bondi posting on X, quote, anyone who crosses the red line of assaulting law enforcement will be met with the full force of this Justice Department. And then out to the other coast, New York City, 15,000 nurses. Our Next Star station picks monitoring this one. 15,000 nurses now on strike, pushing for better wages and benefits. That strike impacting staffing at 5 major New York hospitals. The nurses union there says that the hospitals are putting profits over patient health. The hospitals call the strike, quote, reckless, and accuse the union of abandoning patients. The new mayor there, Zohran Mamdani, showing his support for the nurses by joining the picket line earlier today.
All parties must return immediately to the negotiating table and not leave. They must bargain in good faith.
The hospitals say they have other staffing and will remain open during the strike. Well, how about this? 40 million people all over the world ask ChatGPT a health-related question every single day. And if you're one of them, you're part of a growing trend that's turning the medical industry upside down. AI companies, OpenAI, that's the big company for ChatGPT, and Anthropic, that's the one for Claude, now rolling out new AI health tools claiming to provide personalized guidance. The tools include ChatGPT Health and Claude for Healthcare. They take data from health apps and fitness trackers to detect trends, give advice as well. But some medical experts are warning might not be time for AI to replace a real doctor just yet. With us now, health and wellness expert Jillian Michaels, first time on the show. Hello, Jillian. Thanks for being with us tonight. This is fascinating to me because you had basically 2 of the 3 biggest players in the game come out in the last 4 or 5 days and say, look, we're rolling out these massive health products. We want you to give us what you want to know, and we'll help you out. Where does this go?
Okay, well, here's the problem. In a perfect world, everybody would have access to a Harvard-educated medical doctor who could spend endless amounts of time explaining their blood work and making recommendations. But the vast majority of Americans don't even have an internist. So the question here is this better than nothing? I think for me personally, I would say absolutely. Where can you get into trouble? AI makes mistakes. I mean, it hallucinates things that aren't true. The other day, it actually told me that Kennedy was not the head of HHS and never had been. So that's alarming. Could there be a data breach? I mean, they claim that your information's private and they won't use it in any sort of nefarious way. They'll essentially wipe the information. But is that accurate? You know, does AI become the gatekeeper of medical information? So there are some significant concerns, I think.
You have an extremely successful fitness app, right? Millions of downloads. And one of the things that OpenAI and Claude want you to do is basically to connect, because they say, you know what, we can help you out. Should folks?
I think they should. You know, we utilize AI with my app. So it's a collaboration. I basically program my fitness philosophies, and our registered dietitians program their nutrition principles. And then the user can generate workouts on demand, workout programs that they want. They can put in their goals, their preferences, their likes, their dislikes. And it's awesome. And it can sync all the information on all their other health apps. That's wonderful. But when you're talking about a significant health diagnoses, who, by the way, if there is an error, who's responsible for malpractice? There's just it's largely unknown right now. So I think there's awesome, incredible things that we can get out of this, and there are some significant concerns that we should, take to mind when utilizing this technology.
You know, we reported last week and spoke to the guy in charge of it. We were one of the first reports on this. The state of Utah allowing AI to fulfill prescription medication, and the government there in Utah blessing this. They put out a press release and explained all the many reasons why they believe this is great. Do you think that we're going to get to a point, as I stand here in Washington, with the federal government, with all that they oversee? I mean, you mentioned Secretary Kennedy. Like, is the federal government going to get involved with this stuff?
Well, you actually bring up a great point. I would say one of the mistakes that Maha made was the Maha report. And while it was fantastic information and it did very accurately point out 4 pillars of disease or 4 pillars of behaviors that are making Americans sick, they utilized AI, and AI messed up some of the citations and compromised the credibility of the report, which actually had invaluable data. I mean, this is unquestionably where we're going. The question is simply, are we there yet? I can't answer that, but I can tell you it makes mistakes on me all the frickin' time. And if you can be responsible and take agency and double check all of that stuff, then, use at your own risk. It has obviously a huge amount of upside.
Hey, before I run, something that you do know, of course, a thing or two about that you can definitively say. New Year's resolutions. It's what, January 12th, right? How do I stick to them?
Honestly, take it one day at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Give yourself small goals. Give yourself a step goal. Commit to giving up drinking your calories. Give up soda. Focus on your sleep. Pick 1 or 2 things that you could manage. Tackle those for about 30 days, and then add a little something else to your health goal agenda. But don't beat yourself up and don't take it on all at once and get overwhelmed.
Just don't tell me I need to give up coffee. Or AI, because I use both a lot
God,
every
don't
day.
even say such a thing. No, organic coffee, please, but no, absolutely not. No.
Jillian Michaels with us
Blasphemer.
tonight. Great to see you. Come on back.
You
Thanks,
too.
Jillian. Appreciate it. All right. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. Another day, another foreign issue for the commander-in-chief. The president, is he cementing his legacy on foreign policy? Is this becoming the foreign policy presidency? Mick Mulvaney, Dan Cannon, and Julia Manchester, other side of the break as we watch and wait for Hegseth and Musk as well.
The president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary, and nobody knows that better than Iran.
The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, today on potential moves that the president is considering as we continue to see those protests grow in Iran. The president today also announcing 25% tariffs for any countries doing business with Tehran. It's the latest in a host of international issues that is facing the administration. So how about this? At least so far, will the president's second term be defined as a foreign policy presidency. Full panel here with me now. Julia Manchester, White House reporter for The Hill. Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. And Dan Cannonen, former Battleground States director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. Gentlemen, hello to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Sitting in my chair.
We'll flip
Very
your
warm.
seats if you want next time. Julia, hello.
Hello.
I look around the globe and everything that's going on. Last week we were talking Venezuela at this time.
Yeah.
Tonight it's Iran. And Venezuela and others. And it just brings me to the question right now of 1 year into the president's second term, it seems like it's dominated by foreign policy to this point.
That's absolutely correct. And I think that is by design. I think a lot of presidents, not just President Trump, look to their second term as a way to cement their foreign policy legacy. And that's what you're seeing the president do. He came in hot on foreign policy in general, talking about wanting to end these conflicts, Ukraine, Gaza, the list goes on. He talks about ending 8 wars or whatever the number is. So I think foreign policy is absolutely top of mind. That being said, though, the White House is acutely aware they still need to be focusing on domestic issues, most importantly, the economy, also what we refer also as affordability.
Right.
It was interesting hearing Caroline Leavitt come out and talk to us earlier on the White House lawn and open that press conference that availability, talking about mortgage rates falling. You have President Trump, his recent tweet on Microsoft and data centers and who foots those energy bills. That's also a pivot towards domestic policy. President Trump may not be on the ballot in November for the midterm elections, but the White House understands that he essentially needs to, in a way, his economic agenda is on the ballot in many ways.
Mick, when you were his chief of staff in the first term, you were advising against action inside Iran.
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. Tonight, you're on the other side. Why?
Yeah, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity. Yeah, I was in there every single day. We had John Bolton on the show earlier, and the number of times that Bolton and I would get into heated debates in the Oval Office over John wanting to bomb people and me not wanting us to bomb people would blow you away. But this is different. It's in my mind, it's a parallel to the opportunity that we had with to attack the nuclear capabilities of the Natanz program about 3 or 4 months ago. I lose track.
6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. This, if you really do have a chance to initiate a regime change at probably the leading bad country in the world. I mean, this is probably the worst country in the world when it comes to creating difficulties around the world. You get a chance to make real change here, you take it, notwithstanding the non-interventionalists like me.
Well, the frame of this is interesting because he definitely talks about foreign policy a lot. He's definitely done a lot in terms of the focus on it and the time he spends on it. I'm not sure. Maybe the Iranian piece is a differentiator, Mick, and a place to look at. But I'm not sure you can say much of what he's done has been a foreign policy legacy or success yet. And I want to reserve judgment on that. Okay, well, the Middle East. He says he ended the war in Gaza with the Israelis. There's been 400 dead since the ceasefire and 1,100 violations of the ceasefire. Nothing's happened on Ukraine. The tariffs, I think, have been foreign policy to an extent because he's saber-rattled our allies and created worse relationships, and then he used that to leverage his own business interests. His own personal family interest is now up by $3 billion since he took office, largely through his crypto schemes. And he hasn't done anything to focus on the middle class and Americans and costs, which is what he said he would do when he came to office. So the focus has been there, if you want to call it focus, but I don't actually see any success of note.
Mick, I'll let you.
Well, the bottom line is that foreign policy doesn't win elections. It just doesn't. People don't vote for somebody based upon their foreign policy. They vote based upon how they feel they are doing. So it comes back to what Julie said about affordability. So yeah, look, you can go off and do foreign policy. I happen to think it's by accident. I happen to think that you play the cards you're dealt, and this is what Trump has been dealt. What's going on overseas, what's going on in Venezuela. A lot of that is just sort of the cards he received when he took office. I think he would still choose to be more domestic. He needs to be more domestic because if they spend nothing but time on foreign policy between now and November, they're going to get waxed, and they may get waxed anyway.
The president just posted moments ago during the commercial break, which is what Julia alluded to. Do we have it? Let's show it real quick. He's talking about, he wrote this, he said, quote, "The average American's household's monthly utility bills went up massively, over 30%. I never want Americans to pay higher electricity bills because of data centers. Therefore, my administration is working with major American technology companies to secure their commitment to the American people, and we will have much more to announce in the coming weeks." I keep saying, Julia, I know Dan agrees with me, that this issue of data centers and who pays for the power and all of that is going to be a big issue in 26 and in 28. And now you have Donald Trump coming out and saying, you know what, we're going to work with Microsoft. Essentially, they're going to pay for their own power. And it's one of the ways he's trying to get to this whole affordability.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to my point. This is how President Trump talks about affordability as he's also juggling all of these different foreign policy objectives. He's talking about American companies. How are American companies going to foot the bill so the American consumer doesn't have to? And you're going to likely see Republicans, sort of try to piggyback on this, and when they make that case about affordability as well.
The American consumer pays Microsoft's electric bills. They pay their taxes. Microsoft is not going to eat any of these costs. All of these costs get passed on to the consumer. Microsoft is not going to change its profit margins in order to satisfy Donald Trump. We are going to pay for electricity. This is how it works. I mean, I'm so frustrated because here's why, from a political standpoint. Put the economics aside. It makes no sense from an economic standpoint. From politically, what he's telling you is, I'm going to lower your electric prices. Okay, that's fine. What happens when it doesn't happen? What happens when he overpromises and underdelivers? That is the kiss of death in politics. And you can't.
I'll tell you what happens. He got below 40 in approval, which is where he is right now in the economy, because he said he would do it, and he hasn't.
Nothing ultimately happens to Donald Trump, except he's going to be frustrated if he loses the House.
But hold on. But one quick point on that, because I do think it's interesting. He's acknowledging, for the first time, I think the utility rates are higher. He's not said that all year. He's claimed they're lower.
He's going after the data centers, I've been talking about this, and this is going to become an issue.
Yes, and that is point two, is that he is seeing a villain out there that he can go saber rattle on.
Corporate America.
Well, not just corporate America, but I think this whole AI sector with some of the tech guys, both in terms of job losses with AI, with how they are the richest children on the planet. They say children because they often operate like children, and they own these data centers. All of that's going to create a really bad political environment. He's seeing that. Big credit
cards are the reason you've got credit card payments. Big corporations are the reason housing is too high. Big data centers are why electricity is so high. This is a populist agenda. This is the agenda that Bernie Sanders would have put in if he had won the election.
Then the other big story, the federal investigation into the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Here was Jay Powell last night and how the White House is responding today.
This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
The president's made it quite clear is Jerome Powell is bad at his job. As for whether or not Jerome Powell is a criminal, that's an answer the Department of Justice is going to have to find out.
You were at the White House today. We've been hearing from Republicans. I had one on this show to start off. And you have this, it's basically split two ways. Run away from this issue or let the investigation play out.
Well, this is going to be a big test for Republican lawmakers as we see Republican lawmakers seemingly increasingly go against President Trump. We saw last week 5 Republicans vote against that resolution on the War Powers Act in regard to Venezuela and curbing President Trump's power there. President Trump called, we know at least one Republican, Susan Collins, according to reporting from my colleague Al Weaver, and essentially reamed her out, used profanity and such. So this is going to be a test for how much many of these Republicans, many of whom are facing re-election in November, how much they're willing to stand up to the White House or part ways with them.
You think she's spot on?
I do. I think that this is the type of situation where the White House is. I don't think you're going to see anything more about this. I think they got the splash they wanted on Jerome Powell. I don't think there's going to be much of an investigation. I don't think there's going to be grand jury indictments. I think they got what they wanted on this. It's hard to look at it and say that it's not political. And I will watch the bond market because I cannot believe that Scott Bessent was involved in this decision making. Because if it rattles bond markets, it's going to be really, really bad for the economy. And that's what it comes back to the midterms.
I think Mick is correct on all of that. And also, the Fed has a dual mandate: maximum employment and lower costs. And the biggest problem for rates is not Jerome Powell. The biggest problem is, since Liberation Day, we have net negative job growth in this country, and we added 500,000 jobs last year compared to 2 million the prior year. That is why Powell cannot lower the rates. Trump is his own worst enemy.
The administration would say, as I think Julia mentioned, mortgage rates under 6%, gas prices down at around 270, stock market all-time high. I'm just throwing all of the different arguments out.
They've got some good data about it, but then they come out and do something like this, they could make it worse.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come. Up for grabs, the stunning new number of people say they're not a Democrat or they're not a Republican. I'll show it to you. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to catch up on today's top stories, here's some of our Hill headlines this evening. Mark Kelly sues the Pentagon, Hegseth, over bid to censure lower senators' retirement rank. The Arizona senator, Navy veteran, filing a lawsuit today that argues the Pentagon's attempt to censure and demote him violate his constitutional rights, including the right to free speech. This, of course, the latest in the fallout over that viral video that shows Kelly telling members of the military to refuse illegal orders, or at least that they can do so. How about this? A warning flash for both parties. A new Gallup poll finds the record high identify as both as political independents. 45% of American adults identify as politically independent. Gallup also says that independents are now lean more Democratic than Republican, breaking a 3-year streak in the favor of Republicans. So how about that? More independents, says Gallup. And then there's this. A bear ransacks Tennessee candy store for the 4th time. Gatlinburg, Tennessee. This story comes out of tonight. The store sharing on social media, quote, "A bear has ravaged our beloved candy shop for the 4th time. Let us join hands in prayer that it is safely captured. This persistent bear is a challenge we urgently need to overcome." The Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency is on the hunt for this repeat offender. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do, visit thehill.com. All right, coming up, Elizabeth Vargas reports just seconds away here on News Nation. She is speaking to General Mark Kimmett. That's coming up moments away here on The Hill. I thank you so much for watching us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Blake Burman. Hope you have a good one. Elizabeth starts right now.